Lisa Deneau.
Hi, Bob. It's so good to see you.
I cannot tell you how excited I am to spend this time with you and introduce you to the jazz piano skills community. I think I told you in an email that they are going to love you. Everybody's going to love hearing your story, your background, what you're doing now professionally, your love for the arts, jazz. It's fabulous. So, you know, you joined Jazz Piano Skills. How long? When was it that you joined?
I really started at the end of last year, but let's say this year. So it's been
Yeah,
9 months.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
and you've been an active member. You are officially the director of listening at Jazz Piano Skills. You do the research and put together the listening list for the community that we post every week, which you do a fabulous job with that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. But you know what? To get started, I want to just turn the microphone over to you, and I want you to share with the Jazz Piano Skills community. Share with me, because I haven't even heard this yet. So this is all new for me. I want to hear about your background, your childhood, parents, siblings, how you got into music, your love for jazz, and so on. So, Lisa, it's all yours.
Okay. So, Bob, thank you so much for having me here.
Oh,
I love jazz piano skills, and I love our master class and everybody in it. So here's my background. I got to start with my mother. She was the most significant influence on me and my love for music, period. And I know I was very moved by that when you said hello to me, when I first joined Jazz Piano Skills, because she's not here anymore. And this music is so meaningful to me. Her mother was a classical pianist, a very accomplished classical pianist. And so my mother, I was told by my grandmother, sat at the piano when she was 2 and she never left. And I think that's probably true. I mean, she probably played piano. I mean, she wasn't a prodigy, but she had quite a gift. So there's this musical background, which I'll go into. But first, I'm going to show you some photos. I was looking for some photos. I wanted to share this with you a long time ago, and I found my absolute favorite photo of my mother before I was born. And this was probably in the 50s. She's singing.
wow.
And, these, I don't know who the guys were. You could really
Wow.
tell if you saw their faces, they were really digging it. And my mom was so happy. That
Wow.
was who she was. She
Holy
just
cow.
was yeah. So, but okay, so
Jazz singer?
jazz singer, yeah.
Yes.
So I was told when my mother was in her teens, like 13 and 14, she had a weekly 15-minute radio program. My grandmother played for her and she sang. And then she sang regularly in a jazz band. And those were stories I heard. And when she passed away, I opened a suitcase I didn't know existed, and there was fan mail, little like white
Wow.
postcards to, Barbara Schwartzman at whatever it was, whatever, da 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 da, in New Haven. The address was so simple, but all these beautiful pieces of fan mail.
Wow.
And a letter she wanted to be a professional singer. I mean, she sang, all her life. She was in choirs in school. She had a degree in music education. And in this suitcase, I found a letter I never heard of from a talent agent, who said that my mom sang like a bird. And then in his own way, he said, your piano needs a little work. But, she accompanied herself. So when she got out of school, she became a professional singer. That's what she wanted to do. And I'm going to show you her glamour photo because, I love it.
Wow.
So that was my mom.
Beautiful.
And
She's
that's
beautiful.
when she was. And that's when she was singing in Boston, and my dad was in the Navy. And he heard her, and, one thing led to another. Okay, so I have one more photo I'm going to show you, and
Okay.
it's my glamour photo accompanying my mother.
Wow.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. That's awesome.
And then my dad obviously took these photos. This was my brother in the background singing with all of us, right?
Oh, how
So,
awesome is that?
so, we grew up in a home where there was a lot of classical music and a lot of standards. There was jazz. My mother loved Broadway tunes. She sang all the time. I loved it when she sang. I loved it when she played. I asked her to play for me all the time, really, from elementary school to high school to college, and then when I'd come home from moving to New York. The tunes that she played that I loved, that she sang, were, the Heartbreakers and, Here's That Rainy Day.
Oh yeah.
She
Right.
could make you cry when she sang Why Did I Choose You?
Yeah.
Funny Valentine,
Mm-hmm.
Embraceable You, this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful music from the 30s and 40s and 50s. So she sang that music, and in our home she played everything from she had Bill Evans, she had Andre Previn,
Wow.
George Shearing, and
Wow.
then all the great singers of the day. You
Wow.
know, Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan and Dakota Staton and Dinah Washington
Right.
and on, right? And we listened to Vladimir Horowitz. We
Wow.
listened to Andre Segovia and his gorgeous guitar, playing Bach. So there's a lot of beautiful music. And okay, so I started taking piano lessons when I was 5 or 6. And I studied with a woman named Phyllis Kotz. Her husband, Paul Kotz, was the founder and director of the Dayton Philharmonic. And I would go to my lessons, and if I was early, I would sit in this little room. It had like records and books, that's the way I remember it, and a mirror and a music stand. And one day Paul Kotz said to me, I asked him why he had a mirror in his office, and he said so that he could practice conducting in front of the mirror. And I couldn't imagine that, but I have spent so many years loving watching conductors, and I think
Right.
that's because of him, you
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was with Phyllis for a few years. She was a serious classical musician. I was learning, tiny little tunes. I remember one of them I'm called Little Buttercup. Um, it had lyrics. I could sing it to you, but I'll spare us both.
Okay.
And
You still remember it, don't you?
I do.
Right.
I absolutely
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I remember a lot. But I think my mom realized I wanted to play like her, and I didn't know how to do that, and Phyllis
Mm.
couldn't teach me, so I left her for a while, and then I guess in elementary or high school, I don't remember when, I started studying with a teacher named Gail Charlatan. She went to school with Andre Watts. He
Wow.
came and played at my house.
Wow.
Um, I was too shy to meet him, so I went upstairs and I fell asleep.
Wow.
But I took lessons with her. I honestly don't remember practicing, but I'm sure I did. And I learned to practice my left hand alone and my right hand alone and then my hands together. I have no idea what I practiced. But what I really wanted to play was my all time still favorite piece of music, and that was Rachmaninoff's Second Concerto. And I don't know, way too many notes for me. I don't know where I heard it. It could have been my grandmother. My mother didn't play it. My mother was a wonderful musician. She was not a great technical musician. I mean, she could hear anything and play it by ear,
Right.
really.
Right.
But um, so there were a few things I wanted to play when I was taking lessons. I really didn't want to play what I was studying, and I told my mom I wanted to play some music, and I didn't know that it was Rachmaninoff. And in her own imitable way, she said, "Well, honey, why don't you just sing a little bit of it to me?" You know. So I went, ba da 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 da. So Bob, I don't know if you can hear the orchestra in my head, but it's in my head right now, right?
Of course.
And
Of course.
and my mom got it right away, and she got the music for me, and I couldn't read anything. There were way too many notes. They were too
Right.
small. There were all these lines and dots and whatever.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of pages that I could read. I'd heard the music, and I played it over and over, left hand first, then right hand. And at some point, I was just able to play it by ear,
Right.
just a couple pages.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really wanted to play, I wanted to play Carole King and Elton John and the music of my time. So my mother bought that music for me. And this is really revealing. I thought of all of this in the last week. I was playing something. I knew how to play it because I'd heard it, and I knew how to read music. Just right. So I was doing some sight reading, and I was in our living room, and I played a wrong note. I mean, it doesn't matter, but
Right.
And my mother from the kitchen says, "B flat."
I knew that was coming.
And I was so, I think I was angry because I did not know what a B flat was or where to find it on the piano. I knew how to read to some degree, right?
Right.
So that's pretty revealing. So that that's that, and I went to college, and I started off with a BA, regular BA, and I went to Indiana University.
Good music school.
Great music school.
That's right.
Great music school, great
Yep.
art school.
Yep.
And at the end of my second year, I got accepted into the Bachelor of Fine Arts program for studio art. And up to that point, I loved music. I went to jazz concerts. They had 3 jazz bands. I went to classical concerts. I heard Vladimir Horowitz, my hero, one of them,
Right.
And I ended up taking a history of jazz class with David Baker, the great David Baker.
The great David Baker, one of the pioneers of jazz education.
That's right.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I didn't know that at the time, but he was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
And because of him, a couple things happened. I started listening to music that I didn't know. I'd go to there was a listening library. I went to record stores. They had these jazz bins where you could buy records for 99 cents. It was a huge jazz program. So there was always, music coming in and out of these record stores. And I became friends with a couple of people, a jazz singer, and who became one of my best friends, and a jazz pianist who to this day is one of my best friends. And these people had a lot of skill that I didn't. I never would have been accepted into the music school there. But I, in retrospect, surrounded myself with the music.
Right.
And, I took a couple lessons from Luke Gillespie, who's now the head of the music school there. And I remember, I think I was in a group class, and we were studying Scrapple for the Apple, which I'd never heard, which I didn't like, and I didn't want to play it, right?
You didn't like Charlie Parker? You said no, I don't want to.
No, listen, I didn't really know. This is super interesting. My brother and I inherited this pretty vast record collection of 78s that belonged to our mom.
Yeah.
And they look like this. They're, in these paper sleeves like this, right?
Right.
So my mom had all this music, great music, but that was the music she grew up listening to. It's not what we listened to.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, we were listening to, all the musicians I mentioned earlier, but also Burt Bacharach and Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66. And then my brother, bless my brother, he introduced me to the music of Stevie Wonder, who's such a beautiful musician. And he took me, my brother is a couple years older than me, and he took me to a Stevie Wonder concert. He was old enough to drive, and it was just the two of us. And he's done other things like this. He took me when I was in college to Earth, Wind, and Fire. He introduced me to the music of Aretha Franklin. He's
goodness.
really, so I'm very fortunate.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, but by the time you got to college, up until college, your music background in terms of playing was classical.
Mostly classical,
Mostly classical. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So when you got to Indiana, you got in David Baker's class, jazz, introduction to jazz music. You get introduced to Scrapple from the Apple, and you didn't like it. So what happened? Because now you're this big jazz lover.
Yeah. So this is what happened. I was listening. So I went to jazz concerts, and a lot of times they played standards, which I loved, and a lot of times they played music which I wasn't familiar with, and I didn't love so much.
Right.
But I've had a couple of very special moments in the last 50 years. Okay. And one of them was at IU, and I would buy albums to listen to that David had mentioned the artist in class. Like I never listened to Coltrane before. I'd never listened to,
Right.
you know, Dizzy, and I never listened,
Right. Right.
whoever. And one day I went into, and I love photography. I've been doing photography for a long time. And one day I went into this music store and I found this white album, and it was a solo piano player. And I liked the black and white photo on the front. And it was Keith Jarrett in the Colton concert.
Oh.
And so this was such a departure from anything I'd ever heard. I didn't know if it was classical. I wasn't
All
exactly sure
right.
what was jazz, right?
Right.
He
Right.
he he played forever. It wasn't a 32 measure tune.
Right. Right.
And it I'm not sure what I thought. Part of it I loved. I can hear part of it right now if I
Right.
think of it.
Right.
That opened my eyes. That was like I came from a pretty figurative background in art,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like me looking at a de Kooning painting. Or my
Mm-hmm.
favorite all-time painter. I don't know if you know who she was. Her name was Joan Mitchell, not Joni Mitchell, Joan Mitchell, who
Uh-huh.
painted these extraordinary, huge paintings. You couldn't see them all, and you just couldn't grasp it all, but they were gorgeous, really thickly painted. And that, in its own way, was challenging when I first saw it, just like listening to Keith Jarrett.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Right. So, and I took voice lessons from it.
I can't wait to hear this.
I took voice lessons from a woman named Blanche Foreman. She was getting her PhD studying black opera singer, black music, and or the history of African music. And she studied with Eileen Farrell, so I met Miss Farrell. Uh, she asked me to sing for her once. Thank God she didn't tell me she was going to have me do it, or else I would, I would have walked out of the building backwards.
Right.
But so then through her I met other musicians, and also at that time, um, uh, unbelievably so, the head of the jazz school let me go into jazz practice and do sketches and do an enormous painting. So I really filled my life with music and art.
No, no doubt. Yeah.
Okay. Then I moved to New York in 1980.
So what prompted the move to New York?
I knew I wanted to move to New York. I'd come here with my parents when I was young.
Okay.
Um, I wanted to be anonymous, really. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea how I'd make a living. I thought if I failed, nobody would know me.
Yeah.
You know,
There you go.
I moved with a friend who was a painter. She and I didn't know anybody. We moved to a loft in Soho, and Soho was really Soho before it was a giant shopping mall. It was like gallery after gallery.
Right.
And my grandmother had stopped playing piano. She was in her 80s, so she gave me her baby grand. So I had her piano in my loft, and then after 4 years, I moved to Brooklyn, and it's about the only thing I played over those 4 years. Sometimes I played, sometimes I painted. Most of the time I worked. Was I tried to do my Rachmaninoff, right? Because I really didn't know anything else. And when I moved to Brooklyn, I was walking around in this neighborhood called Park Slope, and I passed by a house that had some flyers that said classical and jazz piano lessons. And I called the number, and I ended up studying with this man, Charles Sabursky, who was a wonderful teacher. And I studied with him for a few years, and I went away for about 12 years. And then I went back after my mom died because after 6 months, I couldn't stand not playing.
Right. Right.
So what was really interesting about that, and I'm going to show you in a minute some of my notes because we talked about note taking. I wasn't certain that I loved what I was learning. There was I wasn't, I think I always wanted to play and sing like my mom. I'm so thrilled to say I have a different thought about that now.
Mm.
But we did play, some of the songs that I liked. I never really liked learning the basics. And, you know, I pulled out my notes. These are the kind of notes that I kept when I was, these are my
Wow.
weekly notes. I check things off. So I'm just going to read to you. This is just arbitrary 1 week. Um, Scales, 2 octaves, correct fingering, right hand, left hand, hands together. Um, Triads, major, minor, diminished, augmented, where the metronome was. Triads, inversions, chords. We've got progressions, the
Wow.
tunes I was playing, all the things you are, how deep is the ocean, there will never be another you. And and the reason why I was made these meticulous notes was I couldn't keep there's no way I could keep track of everything if I didn't.
Right.
And maybe it was a little too much for me, you
Mm.
know.
I'm
At
cu-
the time,
I'm curious. That form that you just held up, was
yeah.
that his form?
No.
That was something
This
that
was
you created?
yeah, and
Wow.
here was a different version of it. It's just on Excel.
Yeah.
It's just on Excel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know what? Very, very
Yeah.
good. Excellent.
Yeah. So it doesn't look at all like what I do today, um, but that's how I kept track of things. And with him, he had playing workshops, and he would hire a rhythm section. And I couldn't get through one song at the time that I was working on. Um, and the first time when I finally agreed to be in a playing workshop, there were maybe 7 or 8 people,
Yeah, right.
outside of the rhythm section. Um, my hands shook literally for about an hour before I even got to his house, and
Right,
and
right.
and and he knew that, so he let me play first, and everybody was so generous. I
Mm.
have no idea what I did, but I got through it.
Awesome.
So so I played with him, and um, I'm going to talk to you about pianos in a second. But when
Okay.
I stopped playing for him with him, and then around 2008, this was kind of the next pivotal thing that happened for me. I got a call from someone I knew, another piano player, who said that he was studying with a musician in Harlem, and they had a small group, and they wanted to add one other person. He thought I'd be a good fit. The fellow is Dan Kaufman. He's a young player, and he's a beautiful, beautiful musician, and the teacher. And the reason why my friend thought of me is that it was a pretty quiet group, because
Mm.
there was a young man. He was about 13, and he was autistic, and his parents discovered his father was a musician, his mother was a mathematician, and they just discovered he had a great ear for music, but his social skills were different than other people's. So we were all very sensitive to that. So I was in that group for a long time, and at that time I learned about Jazzmobile. Now, do you know of
Oh
Jazzmobile and
yes. Oh
Dr.
yeah.
Billy Taylor?
Oh
Like
yes.
one of your
Oh
favorites. Okay.
yes.
So I went to Jazzmobile. And so for people that don't know about this school, it's in Harlem. It's moved from a couple of, one place to another. I think that's why it's called Jazzmobile. But it was really for inner city kids. Anybody could go and,
Yeah.
learn jazz. And
Yeah.
people who were very young to, much older, and well-known people would come and play and teach. And my teacher was teaching there at the time. And I was overwhelmed. I mean, it was jazz theory was really new to me, and it was too much.
Right.
So I started taking private lessons with Dan Kaufman, and he said to me basically one of the things you said to us. He said to me, Lisa, there's certain things you need to know backwards and forwards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how you learn them. They're 4-part chords, and it was like 1-3-5-7 or 3-5-7-9,
Yeah. There you go.
right?
Right.
And the inversions, right? And I started off very enthusiastically, and that didn't last. And because I wanted to play.
Yeah, of course.
I
Right.
just want to play.
Yeah, right.
All right, so here's what happened. The second thing that was extraordinary for me. He said, "Okay, what do you want to play?" And I said, "Funny Valentine." And he took out some manuscript paper and he said, "Okay, we're going to do 4 measures at a time or maybe 8 measures." And he started writing an arrangement. And he would play some chords and he'd say, "What do you think of this? What do you think of that?" And then, a chord by itself may not sound good, but in
Right.
context of the rest of the song was
Correct.
beautiful.
Right.
And
Correct.
and I saw that, like, you could play a D and an E flat in a chord and it didn't sound like mud. It sounded beautiful,
Beautiful.
right?
Right.
So that because of that, it gave me hope that, I could understand what I was hearing that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
And then also he did some really fun things like, and I have the most beautiful arrangement of Funny Valentine, right? But he did things like, if he was playing a tune in his left hand, he might play whatever the bass note was with his pinky, and in his right hand he played the melody note with his right pinky, and then hands together. I mean,
Correct.
he did some very
Yeah.
lovely things, right?
Right.
So that kind of changed my world for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seeing that maybe I can do what he did, knowing that it might be many years away, but I saw what he was doing.
Right.
The other thing was, I had had a few different pianos in my life, and I really wanted. At the time, I had inherited my mother's Baldwin Acrosonic,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Classic.
and yeah, and my I had actually done a long-term lending to a jazz singer of my grandmother's piano because it needed work, and I wasn't going to put into it the amount of work that was needed. And she was very happy to have it. She
Mm-hmm.
took great care of it, right? So I had my mom's piano, and I was learning to listen, and I wanted something more. And so I started getting educated. I had saved some money. I started getting educated about whatever I needed to know to make a decision about what to buy. To me, I didn't know what was under the hood of the lid of a piano,
Right. Right. Right.
And so I did reading. I did a little playing at Faust Harrison and Beethoven and these places on 57th Street where they sell used pianos, and a place in Brooklyn. And I talked to people that rebuilt pianos. I really got some kind of an education. And then I finally decided, I learned that Steinway was known for beautiful pianos in the 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I looked for. And I found My Suite. It's an M, and in 3 years I'm going to be celebrating its 100th birthday. It was
Wow.
born in 1928, and it's got all the original parts. Oh, I've got to tell you part of the story. It's got all the original parts, but one of the graphs broke. I opened the lid over the winter. It's brass,
Yeah. Right.
and it broke. And someone, thankfully, I found somebody. You got to drill down, and anyway, somebody got strings, and so the only new parts are this a graph and some strings. But when I learned about this piano, I did a search online and I found an article about 3 men that used to tune pianos for Carnegie Hall. And I found one of them. And he lived in Connecticut. That's where my piano was at the time. And I said, "Would you please go? I'm going to, I saw the piano. Would you please? I don't know anything about pianos. I don't want to make a very big mistake."
Right.
And he said, "I'll do it, but I can't do it right away." So I found somebody else who went out, and he called me and he said, "Lisa, the piano's fine, but it needs about $14,000 worth of work." True story. And that was not much more than I paid for it. I couldn't afford it,
Right. Right. Right.
So I called this guy in Connecticut and he said, "Don't let the owner sell it." There was somebody else who wanted it. He went out and saw it. He called me from the guy's parking lot and he said, "Buy it." And that was it. I said to the guy, "I'm going to wire you some money." I got the piano. the few people that have, tuned it. One person told me I had a jewel in a, in a little jewel box. So here's the whole thing. It's the piano I love. Are there other pianos in the world? Yes. There's always something else,
Right, of course.
But it's so between studying with Dan Kaufman and then having an instrument that felt like it has depth and a richness, and a feel
Right.
that I'm happy with, that was big for me.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
So I studied with him for a while, and then right before, I guess it was around in 2000. I don't know how many years I studied with him, but I stopped around 2018 or 19, and I lost my job in 2020, and okay, then maybe a year and a half ago, I was listening to podcasts, and I was looking for jazz podcasts, and I found you. So I listened to you for, I don't know, maybe 6 months before I joined. And what I loved, and I still love, is, and this is for, anybody that's, interested in being in under your leadership, that it really is true. It doesn't matter where you start. I know that in our masterclass, I mean, when I joined the masterclass, I looked some people up, and I found one person who's a professional musician, and found a video of her. And, I've heard about different people who have different educations.
Right,
And
right.
it's just an extraordinary group of people. And I felt and feel very welcome there.
Good.
I admire every single person in the room. I love the humor. I love that we have somebody that calculates, 5,000 chords if you did this or that.
Right.
There's a lot of people, and some people are kind of quiet, but everybody's contribution is very, very welcoming.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So okay. So this is the third thing that really made a difference for me, and it happened a couple of weeks ago in class, or listening to your podcast. Really, you started talking to us about chord songs. And I think I wrote to you that I did some playing, and it sounded pretty ugly. And I, increased the beat of my metronome, and I played a little bit more. And then maybe it was 2 weeks ago, you talked about harmony. And remember, there were 5 steps. And when you got to the point where you were playing notes external to a major or minor triad, right? We went through everything to get to that. And then you got to step 5. I thought, I am in the right place. I can't believe this. I can't believe that he just explained to me what's going on. It's so profound after almost a year, that I heard you playing, and I felt so inspired by that. I love your playing.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah. So that's where I am.
Wow. You know what? Your background, Lisa, I got to tell you, I am so honored that you're part of Jazz Piano Skills, because your background, your musical background as a child, your mom's influence. Did your dad play? Did your dad play?
No, my dad couldn't sing one note on tune if he had to. I actually have he passed away a long time ago, and I adored him. I have a recording from many years ago. He recorded, like, on a cassette recorder. He sang "Happy Birthday" to me. It is priceless. My dad was an architect.
Okay.
And so that's where I got my interest in, art. And, I went to the Dayton Art Institute when I was a kid. They let me take drawing lessons. So it was kind of music and art all the way.
So even as a child, drawing, art, music, you go off to college, Indiana, class with David Baker. I got to tell you, I'm totally jealous about that. David Baker's one of my heroes, because of his contributions to jazz education is so massive. And, he's, like I mentioned, he's one of the pioneers, along with, Jerry Coker and Jamie Abersol, Dan Hurley, who I studied with at University of North Texas. I mean, David Baker, big stuff, so okay. So now you're in the jazz piano. You're in New York City, and you lost your job. You said in 2020. What were you doing in 2020 that you lost your job?
Well, what I did for 25 years was I worked for architects and structural engineers. I did marketing and business development.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but now you've returned to your creative roots. Talk about what you do now professionally.
Well, I started my own business a year ago as a professional pet photographer, mainly dog photographer.
Yeah,
And what I love is photographing animals and the people who love them. And I've had animals my whole life. I've been taking pictures my whole life. So that's what I'm making a go at, and
fabulous.
I feel
Yeah,
very
yeah.
fortunate. Yeah.
And how's that been going? Good.
Yeah. I've photographed a lot of people and their animals prior to starting my own business about a year ago. Um, and I'm working it. It's work.
It's work, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about uh, your jazz experience in playing. What for the folks listening, for all the jazz piano skills listeners who are on their jazz journey, um, what it what would you say has been the biggest challenge that you have dealt with in trying to wrap your mind, your ears, your hands around the study of jazz?
Sitting down at the piano and practicing.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I mean, you make a lot of things easy once you get to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just making the time, carving out the time to sit down and practice. And one of the things I'm telling everybody all the time, still practice time, right? Still 10 minutes here, 5 minutes here, 15 minutes there, because it's rare. Don't you find it's rare that you have an hour to sit down or 2 hours to sit down and practice?
It's the discipline.
Yeah.
It's the discipline. Oh, I want to show you something else.
Hmm.
I have a couple other things. This is a book from when I was studying with Dan Kaufman. The whole thing is filled with the way I used to practice. So
Okay.
every day. So I was practicing, at the time, Body and Soul and Tenor Madness, but I would literally write down if I played practice 15 minutes or 45 minutes. Sometimes it was 60 minutes in a day, sometimes it was 90.
Wow.
But uh, but I kept track in a very meticulous way. And when I started to keep track, and it's like a very light version of that. Doesn't even compare to that now. But I have a calendar that I keep just for my, when I'm practicing. What helps me is tracking what I'm doing so that the next day I can start off where I
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
left off the day before.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting, Bob. There are times when I have to I just have to go sit at the piano, or I just have to go to my
Yeah.
computer and work on the things for my photo business. Once I sit down, I'm okay.
Right.
But I could find all sorts of other things to do
Right.
before sitting down. And because when you're playing piano, if you love music and sounds, you're really listening the entire time. You're focused.
Yeah.
And that takes effort and energy,
Right.
right? And there's no playing anything by rote.
Right.
There's
Right.
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 There's whatever it is. There's listening
Yeah.
and listening
Yeah.
and listening. So the hardest thing is just sitting down and doing. Once I sit down, I think I told you when we were playing Blue Bossa, I had the most fun. I can't even tell you the last time I had that. I don't think I ever had that much fun playing piano than
Good.
playing that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you liked the you touched upon this, I think, in some of our emails back and forth or conversations. How did you like I spend a lot of time talking about isolating sound. You just mentioned that word, sound. And talk a little bit about that, your experience with just isolating sound on the piano and exploring improvisation. I would think that that would really ring true for you as an artist.
It resonates for me
Yes.
when I'm sitting at the piano, because what matters to me are sounds and making beautiful music.
Right.
And what I alluded to a few minutes ago, maybe someday I'll still want to sing and play piano, but what I really want, I'm realizing, is to make beautiful sounds. And it's a very simple thing,
Right.
and it's very satisfying
Right.
to to play a few chords next to one another, or to do the
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I try to stress all the time that, playing a song is one form of making music. There are other forms. Isolating sound is one of those forms where you just isolate a single sound and explore that sound using like those steps that I talked about in that podcast, right? Chord tones, scale tones, approach tones. There's so much that you can discover and tap into your own creativity and improvisational skills and emotional expression on the piano by doing that. So I'm curious, your mom, a jazz vocalist, that picture that you held up, man, she looks like right out of that era of great jazz vocalists. Like she just fits right into that whole era with Peggy Lee to Sarah Vaughan to Ella Fitzgerald. Like she was made for that. So that was her. That was really her desire, jazz voice.
It was. And what happened was, when she decided to have a family, and she and my dad got married, she gave up the idea of being a professional like that. But what she did was, she ended up composing music.
Okay.
I mean, my whole life she was composing music and writing music for children's theater and adult theater. And there were a couple of lyricists in Dayton who she worked with. One was, very much like Cole Porter, very, very, very intelligent, sassy, adult. And she also, the children's music. I found this the other day. Oh, my mom was so cool. This is called Bentley the Bull, and the top part, she wrote a lot of her music in pen, which is just, how can you do that?
Right.
Because for me, can I tell you something? When I've even now, I have to use pencil and paper. It's like, how do you get the notes to fill in between those lines?
Yeah.
And they're all different shapes. Not my mom. And anyway, when I was a kid, there was this song, Bentley the Bull, and one, Traymore the Turtle, and I sang them for show and tell when I was in kindergarten.
Right.
So she composed. She was the music director. So that's what she did. She was also in choirs when she was older. She was in choirs when she was in college. I was in choirs because of her.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, did your brother play? He was obviously singing in that one photograph, but did he play any instrument, piano or guitar? Or
he started clarinet.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how that long. Maybe it was for 5 minutes or 5 months. I don't know. Right. And then he wanted to learn how to play guitar. But he didn't pursue it. He's talked about possibly doing it now as an adult, and I hope he does. For his sake, it would be,
oh, absolutely,
just a beautiful experience for him. He loves music. He loves rhythm and blues. We used to dance together all the time.
Yeah.
And the other thing I can say that I really admire about him, he's listened to a lot of music that I haven't. Mm-hmm. So, for example, years ago, when he and my sister-in-law and I were in a car with their daughter, my brother and their daughter were singing to the radio to a lot of music I'd never heard, having the times of their lives.
Wow.
And so, I was thinking about this morning. There are probably hundreds of millions of people who've had parents that were musicians, or just like I have, and siblings who brought beautiful music into their homes. And I'm just one of them. I'm just
Right.
lucky for the background I've had. Yeah, but
Right.
so my brother still really digs a lot of great music
Yeah.
and music I don't know.
Yeah. Does he live in New York as well, or where's home?
No, he's in Chicago.
He's in the Chicago area. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's a good music scene too. So that's he's got a lot to choose from there to go out and listen. So okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of your music idols. Who are some of the jazz pianists that you
Oh my God.
that you love to listen to?
Okay. If I can, I think there's like a core 25 or 30,
Okay.
really, right? Um, okay. Everything from Art Tatum
Oh yeah.
to Brad Meldau.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go all over the place, but probably the most is Bill Evans.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who played with Miles. So that was like Bill Evans and Herbie Hancock
yeah.
and Chick Corea. And believe it or not, Red Garland.
Yes.
That really surprised me, right?
Yeah.
Nat Cole, George Shearing, Oscar Peterson, Bud Powell, Phineas Newborn Jr., Hank Jones, Wynton Ellis Marsalis,
Yep.
Wynton Kelly,
Yeah.
Tommy Flanagan.
Oh, Tommy Flanagan, yes, fabulous.
There are so many.
Billy Billy Taylor that you mentioned earlier, fabulous.
Yeah.
Fabulous pianist. Yeah. Yeah, and Art Tatum.
Oh, wait a minute. Fred Hirsch of the more contemporary. Fred Hirsch. And I found out about him because Dan Kaufman is a student of his. He takes lessons with him once in a while. Dan also still studies classical. But Fred Hirsch, who I've heard at the Vanguard, Keith Jarrett, they're McCoy Tyner.
Oh yeah, of course. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many beautiful musicians.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you've done your homework. You've done your listening for sure. You just rattled off, basically gave everybody a lesson in jazz pianists that they should be listening to. So who are some of the instrumentalists?
Okay. Joe Pass.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Venuti.
Mm-hmm.
Chet Baker.
I was just going to say Chet Baker has to be on your list.
Yeah. Chet Baker.
Yeah. Cannonball Adderley, I suppose, is on your list.
Yeah, Cannonball Adderley. Ray Brown.
Oh,
and I left out Gene Harris.
Oh, yeah.
And I left out Barry Harris.
Yeah.
And I left out also Andre Previn. And I'll tell you something else. And we'll go back to
Andre Previn, tremendous.
Yeah. I went to see him conduct. And he played music that was very difficult for me to listen to. And I was ready to fall asleep. It was very difficult, and people were walking out, and he turned around and reprimanded the audience.
Wow.
I would not walk, in a gracious way, but you really got it. I wouldn't walk out of respect for the musicians.
Right. Right.
But okay, so let me go back to other. I have a list of the instrumentalists who I look to when I do my research, and also a lot of the singers.
Well, speaking of singers, with your mom being a vocalist, I saved the best for last. Who are the vocalists that you love to listen to?
Okay, it's an interesting group. Of course, everybody from the beginning, like Sarah and Billie, who I didn't like Billie Holiday for a long time, and I love her now.
Yeah.
Etta James, Dakota Staten, Dinah Washington, a lot of people that my mom listened to.
Nancy Wilson.
Nancy Wilson, yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
Right.
Gal Costa, who's Portuguese. She sings a lot of Jobim.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm going to pronounce her name right. Elis Regina. She also sings a lot of Jobim.
A lot. Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And oh gosh, I'm kind of drawing a blank here. Joe Williams,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, let's see. At home, we also had Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross. You know, let me think who else. I love. I was just thinking of Mel Torme, but I love Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett.
So this is, Tony Bennett knows how to sing a song, and you feel every word he's singing,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
And there are other well-known singers who I don't think that don't give me that
Yeah.
experience. Um,
Yeah, Tony Bennett experienced the song. It was actually like he wrote that because he experienced it.
yeah,
That's what you get from Tony Bennett.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a young woman, a beautiful young talent who's not with us anymore, Amy
Oh
Winehouse.
yes. Right.
She was extraordinary.
What about the gentleman? I'm forget his name escapes me right now. I can't. I'm getting old, I guess. He did an album with Coltrane, male, Joe Williams ish, but I think even better. Believe it or not. Oh come on, hang on. I'll look it up. Uh, oh, who was that? When I say it, you'll know exactly who it is. Oh, Johnny Hartman,
Johnny Hartman, yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah,
Johnny
yeah, yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
Johnny Hartman, one of my all-time favorite vocalists, right? Yeah. So, wow. So, I'm imagining that you are a pretty active, passive listener as well, where you got music playing all the time at your place.
You know what? I actually don't, and I'll tell
Really?
you
I'm
why.
stunned.
When I listen to music, I want to listen to it.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, sometimes I'm playing old music from, the Jackson Five because I want to dance, right?
Right.
Or listen, my brother introduced me to the music of George Benson.
Oh yeah.
Boy, what another great talent.
Oh.
Sometimes I'm listening to Kiss.
Yeah, wow.
I want to rock and roll all night. I'm dancing in my bedroom. But
Yeah.
and that's true. But seriously, about all the other great music we're talking about, I think I've probably done a lot more listening than I have playing. And I remember in one of your classes, you talked about, you said, you'll be exposed to this much,
Yeah, yeah.
and you'll learn this much, and then there'll be more, and you'll learn this much. And that's the way I feel it is
Yeah.
for me.
Right.
I'm learning more and more as I listen.
Yeah.
I'm really I have to say that sometimes I watch videos or podcasts of people who can instantly tell you what chord progression someone's playing,
Right.
or what key something's in,
Yeah.
or what note something was. I wish I had that. I don't have
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get, sometimes I get stumped when I'm figuring out a tune on the piano, and like
Yeah.
I think the note's a third away from the one I just played, and it's really the sixth or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
It happens. It happens to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, time for you to give some advice for folks that are starting their jazz journey, starting at what advice would you give a beginner, an adult beginner, just jumping in, starting this journey? Because we have a lot of those at Jazz Piano Skills, folks that are just jumping in and starting. What advice would you give based on your lifelong experience of pursuing your education in jazz?
Yeah. Um, I'm not used to giving advice, but I would say, um, if you really love the music and you're going to start studying with you, to listen to you and believe the wisdom in starting where you are,
Yeah.
not worrying about where anybody else is, not comparing yourself to anyone, not being fearful of, I remember the day that I said, I just don't understand this in class,
Mhm.
and someone else said that's true for me too, and then a bunch of people piped in and said it's okay, it takes a little while. There's so much generosity in our amongst our fellow musicians. So um, it's really about just starting with something,
Right.
and that's all.
That's it.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the journey, what you just mentioned, it's so important that we all realize that we're going to be part of conversations where there are going to be words or concepts that just fly over our head, right? And that's okay. I mean, that is absolutely okay. And that's how we do learn, is kind of jumping in the middle of those conversations. That's why I like the master class, because we're jumping in the middle of conversations, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I love it, and I'll say, maybe this would be encouraging for anybody who's just starting. In the beginning, the first couple classes, um, it took a lot for me to follow what you were saying, and that's just not true now. And it's only been 8 or 9 months. Can I practice everything you've presented us with? No. I mean, if I practiced for hours a day, I think I could. Um, I mean, I remember somebody in class saying he gets through everything in about an hour. Of course, he's in a place that I'm not. But uh, I think there's a lot of material, and you can work on what you want, right? You just start. And you've always said start with the 60 chords. And I go back to that sometimes. I really loved when you said, okay, work on the chords in this tune. So you're not working on 60 chords, you're working on 15 or
That's
8 or something
that's
like
right.
that,
That's
right?
right. That's right. That's our musical universe for the month. Those chords,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I was just working with somebody today, and he lives in the San Antonio area, and so it was an online lesson, and we connect every couple months for a lesson, and so our last lesson we were talking about, the assignment was basically like, yeah, we're going to work on these chords in root position. um, if you get those under your hands, those 60 chords in root position, then let's look at them. Let's start looking at them in inversions. And he says, okay, great. That now, Lisa, that was our assignment like 2 months ago, right? Let's focus on that. So we get on the line today, and I said, I'm all excited. I'm like, how's it going, man? How's those chords coming along? And any chance you got the inversions? Just fill me in, give me an update. And he says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so excited." I said, "What? Fill me in." He goes, "Man, I've been learning about half, whole, diminished, and whole, half, diminished scales, and whole tone scales, and augmented." He goes, "I just can't, and I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed." I had to stop him. I said, "Do you know what your biggest challenge is today as a jazz student?" He said, "What's that?" And I said, "The biggest challenge is not to become overwhelmed with the abundance of information that you're going to be bombarded with every time you go out on the internet and start poking around." And he said, "You know what? You're right." I said, "Yeah, because 2 months ago we're working on chords in root position, and now you're bringing in all these synthetic scales and symmetrical scales and so forth." And I said, "It's so easy to get swept away." I said, "It's great to listen to those conversations like what we talk about. Be introduced to something, be aware of something, but leave it there. Don't get it to the piano. Stay focused." Right?
This is funny. I had this thought. I have all sorts of music books on rhythm, on
Oh yeah,
chords, and
sure.
blah 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 blah. You talked about this, in the past about all the stuff we could
Oh,
pick up, and then think you could learn something. It's just way too much, right? And I was thinking I should just send it to you, and you could put it like in a little shelf in a basement of the Dallas School of Music, and it could be there. You could have a little sign that says, "You will never need this."
yeah, yeah. Stay away.
Yeah.
Stay away. Oh, that's
And that's a great relief. It's a great relief to know that everything I could possibly want, other than listening to other musicians, right? Right now is right in front of me in our class.
That's right.
And I'm very satisfied with that. It's a relief.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Before we kind of wrap things up for the evening, talk a little bit. You've been such a blessing to Jazz Piano Skills with coming on and really taking the reins with assembling the listening list that we all get to enjoy on a weekly basis. But share a little bit about your thought process with that, because it's pretty obvious that you're just not, you're not just grabbing something here, grabbing something here. You have a real thought process that you're going through when you're making these selections. And then now with your adding a bonus listening for the week to the list, share with everybody your kind of thought process.
Okay. And by the way, I've already listened to 15 versions of Tangerine.
That's a great tune. Now, I'm sure
Yeah.
your mom sang that.
Yeah, I bet she did.
I bet she did too.
Okay, so when we started doing this, pretty soon after I started doing it, I thought that it would make sense to have selections of music that were specific to each of our 4 weeks of practice in a month. So first harmonic, then melody, then improvisation, and then generally the last is improvisation anyway.
Right.
And I think I told you that the kind of the easiest slots for me to fill in are melody if someone's singing and improvisation, because all the great masters, they'll play the melody and then they're off to the races in improvisation.
Right.
For the first week, sometimes I try to find an a cappella group, or I try to find a jazz choir. I can't always do it. I can't always find somebody that's singing the tune that we're playing on, so we can hear harmonies. And I also will pick a couple of what I think are stellar recordings. Doesn't matter if it's all great improvisation or not, but there's kind of a method to what I listen for. So you let me know what the tune is, and I probably spend about 3 or 4 hours listening.
Yeah.
And wow. I make a list of and that's over 2 days usually. And I make a list of everything that I've heard that I like. And while I'm listening, on my list, on my Excel spreadsheet, and I have a list from since the beginning, right, of everything.
That's awesome.
I'll make a note: week 1, week 2, week 3. For Tangerine, I have 2 entries right now that are weeks 1, 2, or 3.
There you go.
So I have a sense of what I can suggest week by week. And truthfully, every week I have to listen to everything all over again, right? So I start with, I have a pretty large collection, a CD collection. And a friend of mine who's a singer and a drummer, we've been friends for years, he recorded everything in his whole collection and his wife's collection. And so I do a search, whatever tune we're playing, I generally do a search for my collection to see if there's somebody I don't know from him, from his or her music. And then YouTube is phenomenal.
Right.
Oh, I wanted to mention something before, because I think the beauty about this, listening to, it's really insightful to listen to different musicians play the tune we're working on, right?
Right.
And I realized I did that with classical music a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, 15 years ago, when I started listening to YouTube, because I listened to whoever I could hear play Rachmaninoff's Second Concerto. So whether it was Vladimir Horowitz, or it was Rachmaninoff himself, or it was Richter, I don't know his first name, but begins with an ST something, or Kissin, this gorgeous pianist who I heard sometimes I listen to a classical station here in New York. I'm in the habit of listening to many different people to hear the variations that I love, right? So it's really pretty easy to move over to our world of jazz.
Right.
So that is my approach for the generally 7 recordings. That's kind of what it averages out to every month. every week rather. And then the bonus thing just started with me sending you bonuses. I didn't know that we'd ever put them, in the recordings for our masterclass.
Yeah, they're too good to keep. They're too good to keep private.
Well, you know what? I remember finding music that I just loved, and I wanted to share it with you, and I did. And then I remember, I kind of went down the rabbit hole, and I was listening to Dizzy Gillespie at some. Do you remember at a some festival? And instead of his playing trumpet, he starts, scat singing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was beautiful,
That's awesome.
So, okay, so I've sometimes I'll find a video that's educational.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is a jazz standard?
Yeah.
We did that. It was a 5-minute thing, right?
Right.
Or the interview between a classical musician and
Fabulous.
A jazz musician.
Yes.
Fabulous. What is improvisation?
Fabulous.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Last week's was, this whole discussion of Coltrane and playing, basically one chord through an entire song.
Right.
So there's the educational part. Then sometimes for some reason, I just want to share somebody's music, right? Or maybe there's some humor. Like, I really love that little pink puppet.
I know. That's awesome.
And listen, there are two recordings where this pink puppet Muppet is learning to sing the blues with a real blues musician.
Yeah.
It's priceless. I don't know when I'm, gonna have us listen to it yet. But or was it That's All?
Yeah.
I think that started off with someone singing the tune, and it was recorded in an I Love Lucy TV show.
Yeah.
And then there were, and it was nice. It was serious, right?
Yeah, right.
And then we got down. The very last recording was in a movie, and I can't think of his name. He used to be on Saturday Night Live all the time.
Oh,
it was such a tender. Adam Sandler.
That's it, Sandler, wedding singer.
Yeah. Such a sweet rendition.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a great singer.
That's right.
But you can move people.
Of course.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you do it's obvious that you put a lot of thought, consideration in what you're putting together, and what a great addition to the community in the forums to have that every week. So I know I speak on behalf of everybody at Jazz Piano Skills. Thank you so much. It's awesome.
Yeah. Can I mention one other thing?
Sure.
I loved it when you asked people in class the other day, who do you aspire to be like and who do you love? And people brought up musicians that I didn't know about. Mm-hmm. And I want to say, for anybody that's in our masterclass, it is important to me that that you get to hear the musicians you love. So if you bring it up more often, or if they let you know, or somehow they let me know, I absolutely want to include who they love to listen to.
Yeah.
Because maybe I'm leaving out a whole bunch of people that would make a difference.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's such a treat to have you as part of Jazz Piano Skills. You're locked in now. You can't go anywhere. I'm sorry. You're locked in. You're a lifer.
I'm there.
Okay.
I'm there.
And I can't help but to think, what would your mom be thinking right now? Here you are talking jazz, talking music, talking about her, sharing your life and your thoughts and your love for her and your family in a Jazz Piano Skills podcast. What would she be thinking? Right?
I'll just tell you, I wish she was here.
Yeah.
I know she knew how much I loved her.
Yeah.
I don't know that she knew the profound influence she had on me.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. I wish she was here too, because I would love to meet her, and I would absolutely love to play behind her singing Tangerine or singing some standard. It would be a joy. So, Well, Lisa, I can't thank you enough for carving time out of your schedule on a Saturday night, mind you, that we're connecting here. I can't thank you enough and for sharing your story with the Jazz Piano Skills community. I can't wait to get everybody's feedback. I know they're going to be thrilled, and they're going to have a deeper, everybody I know in the master class is going to have a deeper connection with you now. So it's awesome.
And thank you. I love our class.
Yeah.
You know, I love studying with you, and I think we have an extraordinary group of people, and a lot of that is because of you. So many thanks to you.
Well, it's my pleasure, Lisa. Thank you. And the only thing left to do is say, hey, will you promise to come back on in the future and share some more stories with us?
Sure, of course. All right.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Bob.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.